Welcome to Career Coffee Chat Live. I'm your host, CoachEUrban. I'm a certified career strategist and executive coach. And what I do is I help driven, experienced professionals remove their career roadblocks so you can achieve more impact, influence, and income. And speaking of influence, today we'll be talking about what influences your success and, most importantly, the straightforward strategies you can employ. In fact, anyone can employ to see the results you want to see, not only in your career, but in your life. Now, it's interesting because we all know some people who just seem to have it made. And what is that secret sauce to success that these people have that we may look up to or that we see orbiting our lives, or maybe we see them on the media, and we're not quite sure what makes them successful? And we'll probably come up with a whole lot of our assumptions about what makes them drive to that lofty goal that they can accomplish, yet while we are stuck on the struggle bus. So if you want to get off the struggle bus, today is exactly where you need to be. And when you tune in, I'd love to see your smiling face and say hi, say where you're from. So please do ask any questions as we proceed throughout the show. I'm happy to answer them because we'll be going over a lot of really great, exciting material today to help you overcome those roadblocks you may have. And a lot of these are secret saboteurs that you're totally unaware of. So if you're just tuning in, please say hi and say your name. I'd love to welcome you to the show. If you've never seen my smiling face before, you can learn more about me at CoachEUrban.com. And if you like the show, please feel free to share it with your network and spread the good word and help other people see the success they need or want to see in their lives and their careers. And if you're watching the podcast later on, please do give us a thumbs up, give us a like, or a quick comment on whatever channel that you're watching from. Great to see you. Sometimes I can't see people on LinkedIn, so take a quick moment just to hop on and make sure that I can actually see who is saying hi to me this morning. So hi, Aman, great to see you this morning. Katrina said, I'll be there. DB Tunsil, great to see you as well. Jesse, always a pleasure to see you tuning in from Filshire, Texas. Amy, great to see you. Phil, always a pleasure to see you tuning in from Cypress, Texas. So as you hop on, please say hi and say where you're from. And for those of you just tuning in, I'd love to know what you think is the secret sauce to success. So what do you think that secret sauce to success is? Is it how much you know? Is it who you know? Is it how hard you work? Or is it just luck? Because we have a lot of assumptions about what drives success. Maybe it's determination or doing all the right things or being really smart when you choose your next position or next career path. While all these things are important and they certainly can play a role in your success, that's actually not the main driver. Big surprise. Great to see you, John, tuning in from Cypress, Texas as well. So pop in the chat really quick. What do you think is a major contributor to success in general? So when you see those people that are wildly successful in their lives or their careers, what is that common denominator that helps these people get the results they want to see and achieve the goals they want to achieve and make big impacts in not only their own lives, but other people's lives and careers as well? So just let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to see what you think drives success. And it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of research over the past several years into not only neuroscience, but social psychology, behavioral science, and other factors, science-based research into what actually helps people gain more influence, do better in their careers, and thrive in our culture and on this planet. And as a result of that research, what I'm doing today is I'm sharing with you just a tip of the iceberg of some of that exciting research that I've discovered. And I'm really thrilled to share with you some straightforward strategies that anyone can employ to help see success daily or even achieve those major goals, which you might think are a little, out there. You're like, wow, this is a big goal. I'm not sure I can accomplish this. Yes, even accomplish those big goals. So let's see, we have some people saying ability to focus. Amy says ability to focus. That's one of the things that drives success. Good one, Amy. That's really good. Because if you can't focus, you probably don't know where you're going in the first place. So let's see. Jesse says before your book, which he's referring to my book, Elevate Your Career for More Impact and Income. He says before that book, I would have to say hard work ethic and good experience is a primary, and EQ is a secondary, or emotional intelligence. But now that he's read the book, he says perhaps it means a little bit more of a balance between those. That's right. So what drives your success is not just necessarily how much you know, it's also a balance of your interpersonal skills, but it goes deeper than that even. And John says a positive attitude towards themselves and work. John, you're getting very, very close. So I don't know if you played hot, cold as a kid, but John, you're getting really, really warm here. Stefano says ambition. That's right. This is a good one. And, here's the thing. If you don't have a drive to achieve things in your life, clearly it's very difficult to achieve them. And there's another key component that drives success. And that key component is what you think is what you become. That's right. Now this knowledge has been researched and has been around actually for hundreds of years, perhaps even longer than that. What you think drives what you become. Full stop. Now I'll share with you a few of the books, and not obviously an exhaustive list, but a few of the books that I've been looking at. And one of those is written in 1937. Right after the Great Depression, and it's written by Napoleon Hill. Now it's very interesting because I read this book later after I read more scientific and recent modern research. And some of the things that he alludes to in a very mysterious fashion, and in all caps, actually have now been researched, and we understand why some of these things actually occur. Now, he was given what he calls the secret to success by Andrew Carnegie, who, as he puts it, let's see here, he says, the secret was brought to my attention by Andrew Carnegie more than a quarter of a century ago. So this was written in 1937, so you can imagine, right, how long ago this secret was actually given to him. He said, the canny, lovable old Scotsman carelessly tossed it into my mind when I was but a boy. He sat back in his chair, and with a merry twinkle in his eye, sounds like Santa Claus, he watched carefully to see if I had the brains enough to understand the full significance of what he had just said to me. And then Andrew Carnegie, which, by the way, was a major steel magnate. He was a multi-billionaire and gave a lot of his fortunes away. Andrew charged Napoleon Hill to write the book, Think and Grow Rich. And he said, Andrew Carnegie had said that if this particular secret should be taught in all major school systems, and if it was, it would actually cut the educational cycle in half. Now, it's very interesting because, in a way, he was kind of right. Good morning, Brian from Sugarland. Great to see you. And Alan, he says the drive to succeed is a strong indicator of persistence. Yes, persistence is a big deal here. Sustained effort in accomplishing what one sets out to do. Yes, and if you, like Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. It goes much deeper than that, because it's great to say, okay, what you think drives what you become. But why? Why is that the case? And why is this talk about mindset and positive thinking? And there's actually a whole movement around positive thinking and positive psychology. Why is that becoming so important? So what I want to do today is give you some just easy, straightforward tools. Now, maybe I shouldn't say easy, because it does require that we relearn or unlearn some of the things that we are actually holding us back, and our secret saboteurs. So it's not wizardry. Actually, it's basically neuroscience. And what was maybe a little understood over 100 years ago has been obviously researched since then. And now we have a better understanding around what drives. Why is it that our mindset, or what we think, are those dominating thoughts, as Napoleon Hill put in his book, Think and Grow Rich? Why is it those dominating thoughts are our mindset? Why is it that it drives our outcomes? And why is it also that everyone just doesn't adopt these great concepts and everybody be successful? And the reason is because we have to actually unlearn these self-limiting belief structures that are ingrained in us from very, very small. From the first moment we hear, no, you can't do that, it starts this patterning process that develops into quite a lot of self-limiting belief structures. And some of those are self-limiting negative labels. Some of those are self-imposed, and some of them are imposed upon us, and some of by well-meaning people who think they're out to help us. And in actuality, it's not helpful at all. So what are some strategies you can use? So if anybody tuning in wants to give me just a quick word or two, what's a self-limiting belief that's been a part of your belief structure that you realize is actually a saboteur? So if you think about your goals and what you want to accomplish, is there a self-limiting belief in your current belief structure, your current system, that's actually a saboteur that you're aware of? If you want to just pop that in the chat, it would be great to see what some of those self-limiting beliefs might be that continually hamstring us. And I'll share with you a few that are pretty insightful. Now, there's one saying that's called change your story, change your power. And Michelle Gillian shares in her book, Broadcasting Happiness, I'm just a whatever, is another example of a script that works against you. So do you have any of those scripts that actually work against you? So for those of you tuning in or tuning in later, pop in the chat, what are those scripts that you actually use probably frequently, if not weekly, that actually work against you? So keep in mind, we can rewrite our script. Okay, we're not stuck with the script we're given. We're not stuck with these negative beliefs or self-limiting labels. We can rewrite these and change them to be more positive and empowering. So one of those says, I'm too busy at work to do this right now. Yes, Amy, this is great. I'm too busy to do that. I don't have enough time, right? How many of you have had the thought or articulated, I don't have enough time? Be honest. I'm guilty too. Let's see, Jesse says, too late for me to be able to switch careers. That's right. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, or whatever that slang phrase is. Yeah, all these self-limiting beliefs that actually hold you back are just those saboteurs. And what's interesting is when you articulate them and they continually pop up in your mind, they become an ingrained thought pattern that links to an automatic response that then drives your outcomes. Now, that is an oversimplification of a fairly complex process, but that's basically what happens. So we need to be very careful about what we articulate out loud or in our minds, because that articulation, once fine, not a big deal, but continual articulation, it becomes a part of your mental script and becomes a part of your automatic program and becomes a part of your response system. And I'll bet you that all of you who have one of these scripts perhaps have an emotion associated with that script as well. So it'll be interesting to know what that emotion is, whether it's a little feeling of panic, I don't have enough time, I just feel this slight bit of overwhelm, or whatever that is for you. I bet there's emotion involved as well. And I'll talk a little bit about why that happens and why it's important to be aware of it. Good morning, Tim, tuning in from Tampa, Florida. So you can change your story and change your power to be more powerful and empowering to yourself. Now, some of those stories might look like something like this, right? Work hard, play hard. That's a story we've all heard. We've all heard that social script. Work hard, play hard. Busy and blessed. You think that's a positive one? I will challenge the busy and blessed. So for those of you who've heard or seen or used busy and blessed, it is actually perhaps not as positive as you think, depending upon your mental and emotional association with the word busy. Every word, particularly in a script like this, has an emotional register. So let's just say you say, I'm busy and blessed, but at the same time, you're like, I'm a little bit panicked, but I'm glad. May not be the way you want to feel. What about time is running out? I actually had a client say that to me during our introductory call, our consultation call. He shared with me, kept saying over and over again, I'm a certain age and time is running out for me to shift careers. And this time thing was a big deal. So I flagged it for him. I was like, do you realize you've said this about 5 times? He goes, well, no, I didn't realize I said that about 5 times, but you're right. He goes, it's just this big thing. I said, how do you feel? He goes, I'm a little panicked. It's like, can we rewrite this script? Right? Life is hard. That's another one that someone shared with me, a fellow coaching colleague, actually. She said she's working on rewriting her script. And she said one of those was rewriting life is hard. She goes, I realize I keep saying this and making life hard because that's the mental script that I'm writing. So it's actually the program that I'm making automatic in my mind that life is hard. Therefore, when I experience something, this is the first thing I think, and therefore I see it as hard, even though it might not be. So the scripts you define are the ones that drive you. So my challenge for you, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are tuning in, what are those scripts that are driving you? What are those mental scripts, those articulations that you use frequently that tend to be a part of your person? Now, this is not going to be easy. You might want to enlist the help of a spouse or a close friend to say, what do I say a lot? Like, what's that pet phrase? Because you probably have friends that have a pet phrase. What's that pet phrase I use that may not be serving me? What is that? To help get some clarity into this, because sometimes it's so automatic for us, we don't even realize it. And the scary thing here is that those scripts will drive your outcomes. So let's just say life is hard, for example, like my colleague shared with me. She says, I actually was experiencing more hardship than necessary because I had this script in my mind that life is hard, when actually life does not have to be hard. It doesn't. In fact, it doesn't have to be hard work either. And you don't have to be busy to be blessed. So what are these things that we can rewrite? And what would that flip side look like? Can we flip the script? Can you change our story? What does that look like? Life is easy. Are we pleasantly prosperous? How about I've got plenty of time? Whenever I catch myself thinking, I don't have enough time, I say, oh, stop right there. I've got plenty of time. Okay, I have to stop the script, and it takes intentionality. And I don't recommend that you try to tackle every script you have, but pick one that you find is maybe potentially sabotaging and see if you can flip the script. Like, for example, you're never too old. Life can be fun. Life is fun. So what script can you flip to help make sure that the story you're telling yourself, that narrative that you're telling yourself, is actually empowering you to achieve the goals you want to see in your life, to succeed in the way that you want to see in your life, to reap the reward of riches and health and wealth and family and friendships and love that you want to see, versus sabotaging and limiting. So what are those scripts you can flip? Now there's a phrase out of, I think it's just psychology actually. Turn your ants into pets. Ants, A-N-T-S, are automatic negative thoughts. Pets are powerful and positive empowering thoughts. I'll get that out. So positive empowering thoughts. So turn your ants, your automatic negative thoughts, into pets, positive empowering thoughts. Now, it always makes me chuckle a little bit, turn your ants into pets. And it's a very helpful phrase, very helpful script that helps you remember, okay, perhaps this negative thought that I have, can I turn it into a more powerful, empowering thought? So when you think about it, what are those scripts that you have that are sabotaging you? And for some of you, this is as far as you would want to go, and this is probably will help you reap the rewards of a lot of transformation just by flipping the script right here. But for those of you who want to know more, who want to dive deeper, who want to find out a little bit more, take it to the next level, and really remove those roadblocks, rip the blindfold off, unleash the handcuffs, and see the success you want to see, let's learn about those 7 steps to success I alluded to earlier in the title of the show. Now, please let me know if you have any questions. If you have any questions at any time, pop them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them because I want to make sure that you get the success you want to see in your life and your career. And most importantly, remove any of those roadblocks between you and where you want to go. So what are those 7 steps to success? Well, they're pretty straightforward, but they all have a little bit of backstory that I'll share with you later. First of all, you want to focus on the right emotion. Now, I'll share with you more detail why, but this is very, very important. Just think of your emotion as like a library card, right? So your emotion is like a library card, and whatever mindset you have, your script, your bias is always associated with an emotion. And the emotion is like a library card of the brain. So it's important to focus on the right emotion, and I'll go into a moment why that's so important. Number 2, you want to focus on what you want, not what you don't want. You want to focus on what you want. And you would be surprised how often we focus on what we don't want because we're naturally risk averse as a humanity. Then you want to establish a date and time. So if you're looking to achieve, accomplish, gain something, put parameters around that. Give it a framework because it's very important not to have that too nebulous or too open-ended because you may not see the results you want to see quickly enough or in the time frame you prefer. Then take the right actions. That's pretty simple. We can't say, oh, my goal is to lose weight and then continue to eat a whole chocolate cake every day. That probably is not going to help you. So we need to take the right actions. So do the best you can with what you have, in other words. Then write it out in detail. Basically, what is the emotion you want to feel when you're thinking about this goal you want to achieve? What is that goal you want to achieve? So what do you want? What's the time frame that you want it in? What overview of actions? Now, don't get too obsessed on details. I'll explain about a minute and why that is important. But what are those actions you will take, not just plan to take, but you will take? Write all that out in detail. Then read it out loud twice daily. Now, there's a certain time that's ideal to do that, and I'll share more about that in a moment. And then finally, but also most importantly, vividly visualize this as if it was already happening. Vividly visualize as if it was already happening. Not might happen, not when it happens, already happening. That's it. That's the 7 steps. Now we go. That's it. That's all we need to talk about. But I think it's important for everybody because I know me, I'm a scientific brain. I want to know why. Well, this sounds great, but it's hard to get traction and really buy into something without knowing why. So let's talk about that. And I'm sure most of you have probably seen something like this in some form or fashion somewhere else. And there's a reason why I'm very specific about these 7 steps versus other 7 steps or 3 steps or 5 steps. So let's learn more about why. So first of all, the right emotion. The right emotion is so important. And like I mentioned before, it's like a library card. Let me give you a for instance. When you are vividly visualizing your goal, your accomplishment, maybe that's your great next job, maybe that is a certain salary you want to achieve, maybe that's a great vacation when we can do such things again, right? Whatever that is, and again, that when you can do such things again is a limiting thing, so you might want to remove that. But whenever you're visualizing your goal, you want to have the right emotional register. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to visualize this goal and then feel miserable while we're visualizing it. That would not bring about what you want to have happen. So let's just say you visualize, I want to have $130,000 by November. Okay. And you visualize it's $130,000 by November, and you do religiously every single day. Well, when you visualize it, you feel anxious and afraid. When you get that $130,000, you'll get it when feeling anxious and afraid. Your brain is very specific about these things. Just think of the ways you can get $130,000 that are not good situations, right? We do not want that to happen, right? So we're trying to create the right emotional register so we can feel the right emotion: happiness, gratitude, joy, peace, fulfillment, all positive emotions, because when this goal is achieved, we want it to be achieved in a positive and empowering way, not in a way that brings us more anxiety. Let's just say, as an entrepreneur, you want to get more clients, but when you think about that, you immediately feel anxious. Well, then when you get more clients, you will be overwhelmed and anxious. Your mental script, which is then written into the subconscious, is keyed into an emotion. So whatever automatic program you define, whether it's a script you already have or one you want to build, is associated with an emotion in the mental neurocomplex, okay? So the neural network you're creating is keyed into an emotion, and it will only fire off if it is firing off in the direction of the emotion you've determined based on your visualization, on everything that you have put in your automatic program that you wanted or that you had defined. So when we define that goal or that emotion, we want to make sure it's linked with the right emotion and not the wrong emotion. Anybody have questions about that? I know that seems kind of odd, but there's a specific reason why. Because what drives the subconscious automatic programs, I'm simplifying quite a bit, but what drives it is the emotion. Okay, that's the link. And if we feel anxious about a goal, then the chances are of us achieving that goal and feeling anxious is almost 100%. But on the flip side, if we think about a goal, we feel grateful and positive and happy, then when we achieve that goal, we'll feel grateful and positive and happy because that is the script we defined. So the reactions, our responses to situations, what we do, what micro steps we take that are totally unconscious, we're completely unaware of, are based on that definition, whatever it is. So keep that in mind. That's one reason why emotion is very, very important. I'm oversimplifying quite a bit because I don't think you really want this to be an entire lesson on neuroscience today. So next is focusing on what you want and not what you don't want. You would be amazed how many times we focus on what we don't want. So think about, I don't know, having a job interview. Oh my gosh, I hope I don't screw it up. Oh, I fumbled this time, or I stuttered when I do such and such. That's focusing on everything you don't want. You want to focus on what you want. So you want to say, hey, when I have this job interview, I will be able to answer those questions right away with no problem and ease, and I will feel calm. All the things you want, not the things you don't want. Because the more you focus on what you don't want, the more you attract whatever it is you're focusing on. So wherever you put your energy, it's what you receive in life. That's a fact. That's been proven time and time and time and time again. Because again, it's reinforcing that script, that mental script, which turns into an automatic program. And if you're focusing on what you don't want, then you're enforcing a mental script that will attract what you don't want. And we do it all the time. So focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised at how much we actually have to unlearn to do that. Next, establish a deadline. Well, why is this? Well, it's not as simply enough to say, well, at some point, I want a new job or I want to raise, some point in the future. It's best to have a timeline because that will then drive those subconscious micro actions that we're totally unaware of towards a specific deadline. Much more helpful than some nebulous time in the future which doesn't drive the same type of responses and outcomes. Also, we want to take the right actions. Now, here's something that you may be surprised to hear. What we don't want to do is be overly detailed about the how. We actually want to let go of the how a little bit. And there's a reason for that. Because if we get very specific, and for those of you who are project managers tuning in, you'll want to be very specific. You're like, oh, I'll have this goal, so I'm going to do this reverse engineering. I'm going to plan the whole thing. Planning an outline and a framework is great. Planning minute detail, maybe not quite so helpful. I'll give you an example. If one of your goals is you want a new job with a company that is growing and thriving in the current market, and then you put a framework that says, and it has to come through my neighbor Bob's second cousin, that's being way too specific on the how. Probably most of you have experienced a time where an opportunity has come up and it's been totally unlooked for from a completely, totally unknown source or unthought of source, and maybe a total surprise to you, but it was an opportunity that arose out of the blue, as they say. Well, those are examples of how we may have put a thought out there, the opportunity arose, but it maybe wasn't in an area we expected. If you put too many restrictions on how you receive your goal or whatever we want to accomplish, it's likely that the time frame will be much, much, much longer, and to accomplish it will be much, much harder. So we want to have a framework and do the right actions, like if you want to lose weight, you stop eating chocolate cake every day, that kind of thing. But you also don't want to get too minute a detail. So take the right actions. Don't over obsess about the how it happens. Make sense? Probably not for some of us that love to plan every minute detail. But trust me, letting go a little bit of the outcomes, or just focusing on the actions itself and keeping in mind the steps, are very, very important. Now, write it out. Science has proven that by writing it out, you're much more likely to succeed. Having your goals written down are much, much more powerful in establishing a definitive response pattern in your brain. Just having it floating around up there somewhere without writing it out, it's not as effective. Research has proven that by writing it down, it's much more effective and tangible. In fact, the act of writing actually allows us to memorize or remember things much better. The actual act of writing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not so thrilled that they took writing in cursive out of schools, because now kids don't know how to write as easily, and it's not as easy for them to remember things. Typing doesn't work. Gail shared, I'm allergic to chocolate, but not allergic to pasta. Well, Gail, depending on your allergy or your goal, depends on what you want to accomplish there, you may be able to eat all the pasta you want. I'm allergic to chocolate too, so I feel you. But definitely want to write it out, because that helps you tremendously in making sure that your neural network has the right pattern established and you remember it better. Then we take a step further and we also read it out loud. Now, there's 2 times a day that I recommend that you read this out loud. Now, what do you want to read? Well, you want to read the goal, the timeline, the actions that you plan to take, the framework that I just talked about, and the positive results you expect. And then that gives you the emotional register twice daily. Now, once is recommended first thing in the morning when you wake up, and then right before bed. And the reason you want to pick these 2 time frames, which is really interesting, because even in 1937, or actually a little bit prior to that, in the Great Depression, Napoleon Hill outlined, well, you should do it these 2 times of the day. He didn't really understand why. Well, now we understand why, thanks to more research. But at that time, even then, he said, well, it needs to be first thing in the morning, right before bed. And he didn't just pick those time frames because it sounded like a good idea. There's actually a really good reason why we do it right before we go to bed and right when we wake up. Because that time of the day, our brain is a certain wavelength called closer to alpha. And alpha wavelengths are actually the gateway to the subconscious, is what they say. So alpha brain wavelengths allow us to connect to our subconscious mind much more readily. So if we want to write the positive, empowering script, you want to do it when you're more connected to your subconscious mind, where all of those scripts reside. Now, for those of you who are super nerdy, that's in your cerebellum. Okay, so you're writing those social scripts, the ones you want, or your story, right into the cerebellum when you are in that alpha brainwave state. First thing in the morning when you wake up, and right before bed when your brain calms, unless you've had too much caffeine. Now, for those of you who are caffeine addicts, please try to restrain yourself. Because caffeine, any sort of additives like that, anything that peps you up and gets you going, or if you leap out of bed first thing and you immediately feel this sense of overwhelm and panic or anxiety, I will share with you there's a little bit of foundation work you'll need to do to make sure you can access that alpha brainwave state, the more calm brainwave state, because when you get into beta, or worse yet, high beta brainwave state. High beta is when you're bouncing around all over the place like a ping pong ball and you can't think about anything, you can't focus on anything for too long, and you feel totally panicked, overwhelmed. That's high beta. You're not going to be very successful in writing a positive, empowering story or script into your neural network when you're in that state. It just simply is very, very difficult to do. So when you're calm, your brainwave state has relaxed into alpha, closer to the subconscious, is when you want to repeat this out loud. That way it cements itself further into your subconscious and you're not fighting your own too high brainwave states. So vividly visualize, and this is probably one of the most important steps out of everything that I've given you. And there's a very good reason why we want to visualize. It's not a bunch of woo-woo or wizardry or anything like that. It's neuroscience. The brain has no idea whether or not something is happening in reality or whether we're just vividly visualizing it. So it doesn't know the difference. If you vividly visualize something, the brain produces all the chemicals and response and sends the same kind of signal to the body as if you were actually experiencing this. Now, athletes have done this for years with visualizing, like reaching the goal or running really fast and getting there first, or hitting that ball with a bat. I mean, they've been doing this for years. Golfers do it all the time. Any real golf coach will talk to you a lot about visualizing. And I don't even play golf. But athletes have been doing this for years. People who have practiced, they've done research and studies, people who practice piano, there's almost no discernible difference between those who actually practice and those who practice in their minds. Yeah, pretty crazy. So vividly visualizing is extremely important because you want to vividly visualize in the right emotional register what you want to accomplish as if you were already accomplishing it, receiving it, experiencing it. And the reason you want to do this is because you are conditioning and creating the neural network that will respond as if and make those micro subconscious actions and responses to situations that you're not even aware of that will bring you the goal that you have established. That's it. It's just that simple, which is really not simple at all, because there's so much we have to unlearn. Because quite frankly, we don't give ourselves enough credit. We don't. We're told that we don't have that much impact, and maybe not so many words, but we're led to believe that. We're led to believe that we should be small. We should think small. We do. We make ourselves small all the time. We don't allow ourselves to shine. We don't allow ourselves to realize that we're all influencers. And the most challenging person to influence is yourself. So if you can start there, you can influence anybody else. Just really quickly, go back over this. Focus on the right emotion. Think about what you want. Give yourself a date and take the right actions. Because again, you can just thinking there won't necessarily do it if you're actually actively sabotaging yourself by doing the wrong actions. Write it all out in detail. What are those? Does that emotion? What do you want? The timeline and the actions you'll take. Also let go of the minute detail. In other words, the how it will happen. Read it out loud twice daily, once before bed, once when you wake up, and vividly visualize as if it was actually happening. And you will see the success you want to see in your life. Now, probably those of you who are tuning in may have already tuned out because you're like, that's a bunch of bunk. There's no way that visualizing stuff is ever going to work for me. I know what works. It's all hard work and dedication and true grit. And that's a bunch of crap. It is. What it does is it drives overworked, overwhelmed, and overly exhausted cultures like we have right now. And it drives people into their graves, quite frankly. As an entrepreneur, I've done a lot of research into what makes successful entrepreneurs, and you'd be shocked and appalled to realize it's not all about true grit. Actually, that's not that much to do with it. Now, some determination, persistence is needful, but it's not all about being hard on yourself. That's not what really drives success. Not at all. It's whether you have decided you can accomplish it and emotional register by which you'll be accomplishing it. So if you think about a certain goal and you feel dread, and the chances are that's what you'll feel when you accomplish that goal. Again, this is a very straightforward process, and it is back to neuroscience. So I really summarized this a lot to bring you those key 7 steps that'll give you success. But even if those 7 steps are like, oh, that's just a lot, I don't know if I can do that. Hey, if you're open to it, try it out. I'll share with you that I have been for some time, and every single goal I've set, I've accomplished. That's right. So if I think about, I don't know, earning a certain number each month, I accomplish that number. But I have to be very careful about my emotional register because I did that one month and I didn't pay as much attention as I should have about my anxiety around thinking about whatever number I wanted to see in my bank account. And I was super overwhelmed. I didn't make that mistake again. So it's not just about true grit and hard work. And if nothing else you take away from today's Career Coffee Chat, I hope that you can take away that you can flip the script. And knowing what script that you have that kind of maybe subconsciously defines where you are in your life or what you experience and how to flip that script into something more positive and empowering for you, even that small of a change will make seriously major impact in your life and in your outcomes. Teresa said, thank you for that comment. I couldn't agree more about the true grit concept. Yes, it's a bunch of bunk. It's not true at all. You don't need true grit. You don't have to burn the candles at both ends. How many other cliches can we come up with that talk about how hard we should work and how miserable we should be in our lives to see success, which is not at all the case whatsoever. At all. Not at all. So Gail shares, you can choose to influence positively or negatively. The choice is yours, but be careful. Others are watching and you do not want to influence them in a bad way and maybe sabotage their efforts either. That's right, Gail. So if you have trouble thinking about what I've shared with you from influencing yourself and your own personal gains, so think about it like Gail just shared. What about other people and how you're influencing them? Because even the most introverted person who doesn't even like to leave their house to go grocery shopping and probably orders their groceries online, even that individual, well, wait a minute, we all order our groceries online right now. Who am I kidding? The person who's not upset about being on lockdown, okay, that person who doesn't like leaving their house, even that individual will impact over 20,000 people in their lifetime. So if you're struggling with this thought of personal gain, which I would encourage you to consider as perhaps a self-limiting belief structure you could investigate. But if you're struggling with this, think of it in terms of more altruistic and pay it forward. How can you set the example and pave the way for other people to realize that they don't have to work themselves into the ground to see success in their life. So some of this is in my book as far as understanding that it's not just about hard work and being an overachiever and showing up every day, working really long hours. I'm seeing a lot of that right now, pushing those boundaries, actually knocking them down and mowing them down and running them over and working, ridiculous hours. That's not what it takes to get ahead necessarily. It is also your interpersonal skills, and it's also your mindset. Because I share in the book, and it's chapter, no, it doesn't matter, it's like chapter 3, I think it is. Chapter 3 is all about the atmosphere for growth, and that is establishing the, guess what, mindset you need to grow your career. Because simply reading a book or listening to me talk is not enough for you to see success. I wish it were. I mean, that would be great. I would ship that book to everybody in the world. But it's the mindset that matters the most. And for those of you who are interested in having just a little bit of something to take away, perhaps you could consider thinking about what those mental scripts are that you say to yourself most frequently. What are those common pet phrases you use, and are they sabotaging you, or are they setting you up for success? If you're watching the live show later, please let me know if you have any questions. If you're watching the replay later on, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. If you've enjoyed the show, please feel free to share it with your network and share this with those people who could use a little help and a leg up in their life, because Lord knows we all can in these challenging times. And if you're watching this or listening to the podcast later, please give us a like or a thumbs up or a quick comment about how much you enjoyed the show and what was your top takeaway from today. Until next time, this is Erin Urban with Career Coffee Chat.